Well, you're aware that Nigeria's external reserves has now hit $41 billion. That's at August 19, 2025. That's the highest level in 44 months. Well, this is according to figures published by the Central Bank of Nigeria on its website. The current level marks the highest level recorded since December 3rd, 2021, and shows the steady external accretion witnessed in the recent weeks. The new trajectory comes after months of gradual depletion and volatility, largely attributed to intense pressure from external reserves, external pressure from external debt repayments. The reserves have staged a strong rally in August, adding about $1.46 billion month to date from $39.54 billion on August 1st to now at $41 billion. That's as at 19th August. This represents a 3.69% growth in less than 3 weeks. The momentum has been broadly consistent across trading days, with only marginal pauses. My guest is co-founder and CEO Budget, Mr. Seun Onigbinde. He joins me from the United States of America for this conversation. Mr. Onigbinde, good afternoon and thank you so much. It's always good to see you. Thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Tolu. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
All right, then. 41.05 billion US dollars is what we are recording. I'm looking at the fact that where we're coming from, say for like some 12 months, 16 months ago, and we are at 41.05 billion. Mr. Onigbinde, you agree with me that a lot of work has been done, and it seems like it's paying off.
I think I agree with you. A lot of changes have happened. Let's not lie. The improvement in the external reserves is a welcome development because, and I think what also needs to be published factually is also the net reserves, because in previous years we've used the external reserves, I mean the gross reserves, to mask the actual state of Nigeria's balances. So it's also very important that I think the point where the CBN governor said it has risen to 23 billion. I'm seeing some news around 40 billion. I think there has to be much more clarity about that. Also, you also have to agree that FPI flows have accelerated that. There's been a lot of interest in investment in Nigeria's bond and stock market in recent months. So it's also very obvious that that will have also improved our current external reserves position. Also, we know that that is hot money. So if there's any imbalance within the global macroeconomic framework, that would also, those funds as they come in, they also try and exit the same way. So it might also be exciting, but it's also not something we can fully plan on as a country. But it's also good news. We have to agree that the government is doing the fundamentals right, which is the macroeconomy, which is what the mistake that the previous government made. And if the macroeconomics is set, and that's when you can actually build a proper system on top. But there are also some adjustments that needs to be made, especially on social protection, food security, also even on fiscal discipline. But if you look at the macroeconomics, which is we look at the exchange rate, we are finding some stability in that regard. We look at the external reserves, it's rising. We also even look at inflation, even though I won't call it rebased, we adjusted inflation metrics, but it's dropping. But definitely, you also want that to also start impacting on the macroeconomy and microeconomy over time. But what you see is the macroeconomy is looking good. The other part also is also that it also might be an opportunity for the CBN to intervene more in the market, because even at 1,530 to $1 that we currently have is still too high. So even the CBN is able to bring some width into the foreign exchange market, and possibly we can get like a drop down to 1,400, 1,300, and possibly that begins to reflect the fact that we have very strong reserves that we can use to keep our currency much more stronger. Stability is good, but definitely it's also very important that we create a small corridor to move backwards or to make the currency a little bit more stronger. So I think that's just from my own point. I feel like at 1,500, the Nigerian currency is, valuation is still very too low. We need to strengthen it a little bit more, and this could be our window for such.
Yeah, of course, this helps support economic stability, import capacity, debt management, and of course, but my focus really is attracting investor confidence, because that is what we need at this time. We are obviously driving more foreign portfolio investments than foreign direct investments. And Mr. Onigbide, when are we getting to that point where we would earn the confidence of investors and they would be able to comfortably do big business with Nigeria? Talking FDIs now, at what point do you think all of our economic indicators will show that, yes, Nigeria is the right place to bring the money?
Yeah, if you look, our FDI has crashed significantly, but there are three things that we must look at when we are trying to build FDI. I think we're doing the first one. We are trying to create a stable macroeconomic environment, so that is good. If we create a stable macroeconomic environment, it gives opportunity for people to build, to come in and say, okay, I have some stability. But so an investor, what you're thinking about is not just entry, you're thinking about exit as much as possible. So you want to be sure that the point of exit, which is not going to be sudden. FPIs can exit in 12 months, can exit in 6 months. But an FDI is an investment that you possibly want to exit in 5 to 8 years. So in that situation, you want to look at the country from a long-term perspective. Is these an opportunity? How sustainable are these reforms? Are there frameworks that are already built in place to keep us on the same trajectory? So it's going to take time, because FPI is like someone, it's like you put a hot bowl of water on the ground. You don't just dip your legs fully inside a hot bowl of water. You first test it a little bit, and those are the FPIs. Those are the foreign portfolios. Those are the people that are testing the waters. The time is going to come where people can put their 2 feet inside the hot water and say, okay, we want to explore this. The second thing you want to need beyond that macroeconomic stability is, what are your opportunity shoots? What are your opportunity growth? Because if we looked at FDIs in the Obasanjo days, it was because we had a telecom sector, the pension sector, the banking sector that was open for liberalization, and the opportunities now came as a result of that. So it's also very important that the government has to sit down and ask itself, where is the potential growth here? What sector do we need to open up more so that investors see a 3x, a 4x, a 5x growth opportunity here? Is it in the energy sector that we have to think through? Is it in the insurance reform came recently? Maybe that's something what the government will be thinking through. But there has to be some deliberate opportunity shoots that the government is putting forward. Without that, it looks like you're a nice bride, you're a nice system to come into play, but we don't see the opportunities. You've done everything right, but we don't see opportunities, and that's what we have to do. We have to also think through what are the sectors that we can excite, that we can push forward to be able to generate. With this government, I've seen a lot of interest in the energy sector, which is acceptable. For long, we've not treated that sector with the seriousness that it deserves. Somehow we've been carried away with some, conversations around maybe we should drill less oil, or we didn't have a fiscal or a proper legislative framework, which is the PI for years. So now that we have that, these governments are attaching a lot more seriousness into that sector. So good, but there's also that sector that can excite. So that's where FDI will come in play. The third thing you also have to now build in terms of getting more FDI is also, how are we going to make sure that the rule of law is strong? Because we do the macros, we bring up the opportunities. If people want to see a strong rule of law, they want to look at you from a structure that this is a stable system. And this is not just about the democracy or not democracy. No, we already have some advantages by being a country with a lot of, we have people, we have population, we have a thriving consumption market. So people also, so the idea for Nigeria, the investment case for Nigeria is heavily there. But what happens to the rule of law and security? Has government also been able to make sure that The judiciary system is what it should be. Transparency is what it should be. Accountability, what it should be. Fiscal discipline is what it should be. If you don't set up the rule of law in a way, so you can attract investment. So I think if the government is able to sit down and reflect on those things, they will be able to say, okay, we've done the work on the macros. We have APIs that are testing the waters in this economy. How do we get a sticky, foreign exchange, foreign direct investment? But those fundamentals have to be set as much as possible.
You touched on the oil and gas sector, which we know that there's been a bit of interest in that sector. Executive orders that have attracted some level of investment, the Bonga deal, all of that. But I wanted to just look at the PIA around that place. Maybe we just go there briefly. What you make of the implementation of that document. I'm seeing that it's 4 years after, but we seem not to be dealing with that document holistically as it should be, because you would agree that there's a bit of fallout one way or the other.
I agree with you. This is what government does. I mean, if anybody breaks the law more often than not, it is the government. I mean, we have the local government autonomy most over a year ago by the Supreme Court. Till now, we're yet to fully implement the local autonomy in the spirit and in the letter of the Supreme Court. We had a PIA. First of all, I felt like PIA was a document of convenience. It wasn't. We had made too much effort. We had knocked that door enough. So we just needed something to come out of it. So I feel like we could have done more diligence with that document. But okay, we have something that we can be improved on. So we take it. And I think that's what you see with the federal government. I mean, under Tinubu now, coming with different documentation, executive orders, policies, just to make sure that they strengthen and improve what the gaps within the PIA, especially around incentives for investment. For me, I feel we did not have an excellent PIA from the start. So it makes even implementation even now much more challenging. And I will explain to you a few places. One is NNPC Health. If you read the previous versions of the PIA, there was a different way of how that institution was supposed to be dealt with. There was supposed to be a little bit of arm's length from the government. There was supposed to be these legacy issues were supposed to be warehoused into a liability vehicle so that deals with itself by itself, like the refineries. And there was supposed to be some adjustment on the operational cost. And so that, the huge overhang that comes from his operational or corporate expenditure, can come down a little bit. Because in NPC's major cost centers are its corporate headquarters, its refineries, which have not been profitable for decades. And so that was so that you have a more agile and a leaner NNPC that is more efficient and is able to go to the market and is able to fully operationalize, as a business concern. What I think we still came out of is more like we just adjusted nomenclature and maybe some adjustment on fiscal incentives and also changing the nomenclature for regulatory elements like NURPC and all of that. So in my own view, I think maybe give it a year more. It's time to maybe take a look at the PIA. The PIA as it's structured right now does not make NNPC, which is the fulcrum of that document, has not made it as agile as it should have been. And I think that's the major thing that has to come forward from us reviewing this PIA. The second thing also is to look at the incentive structures that have been built by this current government. We need to put that into law, because a new government comes in or something changes, there has to be a structured way that some of the adjustment we make in terms of incentives are also documented, also crystallized into the law. But I don't think that the PIA, in my own view, was weak from the start, but also it has not been fully implemented as it should have been. Also, you look at NNPC, it should be bigger than what it is. And if you look at this recent statement when they said they were not going to do the tax credit, that they were exiting from the tax credit framework, and we had conversations around what's the NNPC's taking on this tax credit framework of building roads in every corner of the country. It is not within its mandate.
Yeah.
So the NPC do its mandate. But I feel like it's time for a holistic review, because we are dealing with an industry that is running out of time.
Indeed, I think it's our time. Many of these agencies are focusing on their core business, just like the CBN is also saying market stability, currency stability, and all of that, not getting into all the kind of schemes that, you know, sometimes doesn't even have anything to do with the agency. But before I let you go, let's talk about social safety, which you touched on one of your response, talking about the fallout of government reforms. Now, particularly, what sort of social safety initiative do you think would be transparent and, you know, get to those that really need to get this support? Because the support is highly needed. But how do we make sure that it is properly managed, not politicized?
To be honest with you, when we talk about social safety, in a way, I feel like this is one of the biggest weakness of this government. Certain decisions were taken that had significant social impact. Because when we look at some of this removal of social subsidy, exchange rate parity, those are economic decisions, but they do have significant social dimensions, and especially on the very poor and vulnerable people. I think the government didn't crystallize its ideas. It took them over a year to do the minimum wage. You know, we're still battling with food inflation in high levels. So, I mean, some of the decisions should have been much more stronger and much more. There should have been much more coordinated thinking to some of these reforms that have been put forward. But the reality is that for us to change the social production, it comes back into our identity system. It's not an easy thing to do, but we have to start with our identity system and also benchmarking and connecting the data, the BVNs, the data together. Because I think what we are doing right now is not holistic enough. I mean, we go and say we go to a local community, a poor community, they nominate the poorest gets on the register, at what conditions, what happens to the urban poor, what happens to the peri-urban poor, what happens to do they have an opportunity to get on the register. I don't think it's holistic enough. And if you look at systems, what people do is that they take the taxation framework properly, which I feel like maybe what the government is trying to do now with the taxation reform. Take the taxation reform. It's a benchmark, your taxation benchmark. How much did you declare as income in a year? That qualifies you some form of government benefits that you need to get. So there has to be some data coordination from identity systems to income levels to bank balances levels, you know, which we can get with the BVN, and you now connect that into kind of opportunity and taxation, and you now connect all of those dots together, and now decide who qualifies for government benefits. And you also have to decentralize that. I've been hearing social safety net, federal government. What happens to the state social safety net? Most states are getting 2 times, 2.5x what they used to get. You know, so what happens to a social safety net at the subnational level? How is the federal government also putting pressure on states to create a social safety net? Or do we want to rely on this ad hoc mechanism where this first lady shows up and says, oh, we're having a renewed hope and we distribute 100,000 bags of rice and all of that? That's not how to build a social safety net, in my own view. Basically, is that let it be structured, let it be layered on data and identity systems. It's hard to build, but it's something we have to build once and for all. And I believe that maybe the taxation framework that we are building right now is our entry into that gateway. But you know, it has to be different. It's not effective as it is right now.
Mr. Olusegun Onigbinde is co-founder, CEO, Budget. Thank you so much for your time on the program. Do enjoy the rest of your day. We appreciate your time, the time zone and all of that in the United States, but enjoy your day. Thank you so much as always.
Thank you so much, too. It's a pleasure. Yeah.
All right.